Alright, so again, I forgot to turn the camera on for the last week. I don't know what's going on with me. Sorry, guys. But I'm getting there. Getting these knives all taken care of finally. Getting them out. I should have the last 4 or 5 locks cut and blades fitted today. And then a couple other little finish processes, and they're pretty much good to go. So you guys that have been waiting, the 30 guys that have been waiting, I'm really sorry. It's just been ridiculously inefficient the way I've been going about cutting the locks and fitting these blades. I had initially machined the stop pin tracks to leave myself a little bit of extra material so I could fit the blade in the open and closed position. I realize now that that was a horrible mistake. I am going to finish machine this stop pin track all the way in. The machine, the Tomac, is completely accurate enough to handle that. I was just hesitant and a little scared to do that just because it's like kind of takes some of the process out of my hands, so to speak. I don't know, it's hard to say. But the way I've been cutting these locks, and I think I've showed you this fixture before, but I'll show it to you again. Let me grab the blade. It is horribly inefficient, and I'll show you why. So this bolt here dictates, let me slide this in here. So I put the blade in, and you know what, let me set this thing on the tripod and then you'll be able to kind of see what's going on here. Zoom in. Okay, so basically the way I set this up is I put and now this pin might not go in because there's a little bit of paint in there from the etching process, but pop the pin in there, and then I run this blade, the spine of the blade, up against this bolt, and that gives me the angle that the lock face hits the lock face of the frame. And then I clamp it down, and I put a cant clamp on there as well just to hold it down a little further. So not the most particularly, or not the best way to hold something down. And then I just come in, I have a scribed line on here from the lock bar. I come in with the 3/16 end mill and I just machine that out. The way I do this, or the way I have the flipper set up, can't really bend it, or excuse me, grind it, because it would grind off a flipper. So I have to use an end mill to come in here and do that. It's a little slower, but I kind of like it because it's a lot more accurate. For the most part, unless there's a little discrepancy here and there, I can swap most blades, even with the lock cut, between knives now, which is awesome. So if I screw one up, I can just make a new one and I don't even have to have the frame with me, or it's just easier to make it. So, but the problem I'm finding is that it's incredibly inefficient to have an Allen key to loosen it, pull it off of here, pull that pin out with a screwdriver, slide it up, excuse me, frog in my throat, check the blade to frame fit, and then do that 5 or 6 times for every freaking blade. And also, between that and dremeling in and hand fitting the freaking stop pin track, it takes me 45 minutes per blade just to fit them in and cut the lock. That's just ridiculous. So I'm going to build a new fixture that's going to square some things away. So while I've been doing this, I programmed the mill to cut me out a buttload of pocket clips. So all these bad boys. So they just need to be deburred, have the glue scraped off the backside of them. And I'm building a new fixture for bending these that'll make me more efficient that way. These are all of the lock inserts for the Hoback run that I'm doing. There's 90 of them. A couple extras. But we're doing that. We're doing a batch of 60, but I had enough to do 90 inserts, so I just figured I'd do them real quick. I increased my efficiency on how I do these. Now, granted, these guys have a little bit of like foil basically left on them that needs to be ground off, but that's pretty simple. You can tear it off for the most part with a pair of pliers. But I was able to double the amount of lock inserts I could get on the same size sheet of steel that I normally only got 15. Now I'm getting 30 per piece, which is awesome. And I found a more efficient way to hold them down. Epoxy works great. A couple of bolts and a bunch of epoxy holds it down nice and flat, and I can actually part them off. I was running into some issues that I fixed, but towards the bottom here I had some ones that parted off completely. So you just toss them on the disc sander real quick to knock the glue off. Go around the edge real quick with a pair of pliers and a Dremel, clean it off, and voila, it's done. So that's pretty cool. I also changed the way I'm doing the inserts because I was having so much issue with them. Let me find one that's doesn't have a bunch of burrs on it. Yeah, this one's a little better. It's got a little bit of a burr on the end, but if you'll notice, it is, this section here is straight to where it used to divot in, kind of like a puzzle piece. This will allow me a little bit of adjustment in and out on the lock bar, and also makes it much easier to fit into the lock bar. I also made it thicker because I am going to start putting the screws on the outside of the frame so they're user accessible, and I'm going to tap these 3 holes in the lock insert. So if you ever need to replace it, you ever need to do something, you can tighten it from the outside. You can also replace it from the outside, which makes it pretty nice. So pretty cool deal there. So I'm finishing these up. I'm going to start running the blades here momentarily. I have, sadly, I have $3,000 worth of material laying on the floor. But I got, I don't know, I think there's like 9 or 10 sheets of tie there, 11 sheets of tie, and a couple sheets of 4V. I got a couple more sheets of 4V coming in from Aldo. So Pete, if you listen to this, send me my steel, brother, and we're going to get machining. So I got to build a new fixture real quick. Gonna have a new bolt. I'm gonna retire this guy. It's got quite a few holes in it, but also I discovered a better way to make that bolt pattern so I have a little bit more room in there, and I may actually be able to get more than 15 blades on each pallet. This is the last of the pocket clips. I was running through. I was having an issue. I didn't clean the back of this tie or scratch it up enough to where the epoxy, it's started to lift on me. So I was running into some issues of breaking end mills with it. So I'm just going to yank this off and I'll just finish cutting these out. They're already half depth profiled, so it won't take too long to get them cut out on the bandsaw. There'll be a little more cleanup, and I hate to do it, but I'm just going to have to pull it off here. I'm tired of breaking end mills on this thing. So I'm going to pull this off. I have another sheet of these to run, so I'll have like 200 or 300 pocket clips. I'm going to bend my new fixture, or machine my new fixture here shortly, that will allow me to bend 5 at a time. This fixture worked really well for what I was doing, but doing 40 or 50 of them is no big deal. But when you're doing 200 or 300 of them, this is incredibly inefficient. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a fixture that out of steel, well, probably a couple of them actually, but it'll be about 3 inches long and 2 inches wide or so, and it'll hold 5 pocket clips with 2 pins at the top of each pocket clip, and you set them on there, and then you hit it with a torch and heat them up red hot, and then the upper male die will just come down and press them and fit them to the side, and once they cool off, they'll stay there, and you overbend them a little bit, but when you heat them up red hot, you don't really need to do it too much. So that'll make it more efficient. So we'll just deburr all those and get them ready to bend and sandblast and tumble and all that fun stuff. But yeah, everything's going pretty good. Finishing up these blades. Oh, new addition to the shop. If you guys are on Instagram, you probably saw my new toolbox. I finally had to break down and finally get one, cleaned out the crappy Craftsmans that are just terrible. I hate those toolboxes. I hate you. You suck. You're awesome. Because it has ball bearing slides. Don't ever buy a toolbox that doesn't have ball bearing slides. So I got this from Harbor Freight, of all places, and it's actually a really nice toolbox. I'm a bit of a snob when it comes to tools like this, and well, I don't know if you can really say that since I got that piece of crap, but hence the reason I haven't bought another toolbox is because I haven't been able to find one for the price range that I'm looking for that would fit my needs and requirements for usage. But this has got detents in the drawers, it's all ball bearings, and they slide really nice. And it gives me plenty of room for fitting all my knives. So I've already pretty much filled it. I'm going to go get the top box next month, I think. But it allowed me to organize. Got all my bins. I get these from this place called Schaller Corporation. I get all my plastic boxes from. They sell a ton of these little red boxes. And it works great for putting all your screws and stuff and organizing it. They're really not expensive. I mean, these little drawers are like 25 cents, 30 cents a piece. So I've ordered a few hundred of them. Now I'm set up for when I'm working on knives frame, blade, backspacer, everything goes in the big one, and then pivots, screws, bearings, all that HRD, all that stuff goes in here. So I've got 4 drawers. I can work on 72 knives. And then below that, I set it up. Oh, nope, I got 4 drawers. There we go. Set up all my tooling, collets, parallels, clamps, all that crap. And then now I also have a place for all my tooling. So that's helpful. I got all my new end mills and crap like that can go over here. And then now I have room for different things. My router attachment for the mill. And then drill bits, counter bores, crap like that. Collets for the Bridgeport. Miscellaneous drawer. Gotta fill this one. And then just bearings, screws, rivets, all that wonderful stuff. Bearings, bronze phosphorus bearings, stuff like that. But yeah, so that worked out pretty awesome. I like it. I'm looking forward to getting the top box so I can actually put all my hand tools from that over here. I picked up these, excuse me, sorry, mailman was driving by. I picked these up from a neighbor who went to a hospital that was going out of business, and they auctioned off everything. I think there's some kind of medical dispensing drawers, I'm not sure. But these things are great for nuts and bolts organization. It just works awesome. And all these stainless screws come from the freaking scrapyard. They had a whole dumpster full of just thousands of pounds of stainless nuts and bolts and screws and everything else that you can think of. So yeah, I went in there and it was like, you pay $1.50 a pound, so I bought a 5-gallon bucket full because I use them for everything. And stainless is nice because you can really, you don't have to worry about them as much. I mean, even the hex bolts are stainless. I mean, you go down to the store and try to buy a stainless bolt, it costs you $5 a piece. So scrapyard, I love the scrapyard. I don't know. I'm just a junker at heart, I guess. Miscellaneous stuff for the plasma cutter. We got taps, dies. My miscellaneous drawer. I love this drawer because anytime I need something random, it's usually in here. Some clamps, knobs for building grinders, pulley, stuff like that, and a contact wheel. I'm not sure even where that came from. But yeah, so what else is there to show you around the shop? Nothing too particularly new. I've been spending the last couple of weeks cutting freaking locks because I suck and I'm slow. Oh, exciting news. We bucked up and we got a grinder. Okay, so y'all know I'm fully capable of building my own grinder because I built that one. But with my time constraints and how many people I have waiting on me for crap and just no time, I got a hold of Chris over at Wilmot, and he got me a good deal on a 3-arm. I'm sorry, I'll do a video when I get it in. It should be here Friday. And it's going to be my horizontal setup. So it's got the flip plates, it's got small arm, everything. I just went crazy with it and got everything set up to where I can set up a brand new horizontal grinder because this thing is driving me nuts. I realized the other day that I spend more time in front of this stupid horizontal grinder than I do in front of that beast. This is ridiculous. This thing was a Delta oscillating spindle sander at one point in its life, and then after a sheet of metal to extend it and a couple of really crappy homemade wheels and some kind of silly bracket that I made to keep the spindle from popping up, and I disconnected the oscillation part inside the machine, and it's like a 1/3 horsepower. And then my small wheel attachment is a bunch of stacked skateboard bearings. Let me see if I can show you that. So I've been getting by with this for the last, I don't know, 3 years. And I mean, it's got a flat plate, which I don't use. I pretty much only use this thing for the small wheel section. I freehand everything. So yeah, I don't like really have any tool rest. As you can see here, it doesn't even reach the bottom, so I can't even use the tool rest on this thing. It's hilarity. I mean, it's just ridiculous that I use this thing all the time in basically a production environment. And so it's going the way of the dodo. I'll probably just part it out, take all the parts, motor, and all that stuff, and save it for something. Who knows? Maybe I'll somehow turn this thing into a automated knife sharpening tool of some sort. I'm sure I could probably figure something like that out. And that'll get rid of my little 1x30 that I sharpen on. I'll try to do a video for you guys on how I sharpen. I don't know if... Sorry, trucks are driving by. I know I had a lot of comments and a lot of people liked the fact that I showed how I was grinding on this guy. So I may show you just how I do my knife sharpening. I know Kirk over at Rampart Pictures was asking me about that. So I'll have to do a video. This is just like a $25, $30 1x30 belt sander from Harbor Freight. The only thing I've done to it is actually, I don't even know why I have this on here anymore. I used to cut locks on it. But there's a piece of, let me pull the belt off here and I'll show you. One silly little mod makes it much more usable. I just added a piece of CPM 154 screwed to the plating. It's like 1/8 inch thick. And what that does, once this truck goes by, what it does is it just puts a little bit of extra tension on the belt. Now this motor is like horribly underpowered, so you can't put too much tension on it. But it puts just enough tension on here when I'm doing I sharpen right here on the basically a slack belt side. So let me one-handedly put a belt back on this thing. I don't know if I can. Alright, tripod time. So basically, I sharpen across here, so let me pull out my auto. I'll sharpen across, get a burr, flip it, sharpen the other way. Now this belt has got a fair amount of tension on there. I mean, if I just set the knife on there, you can see that it doesn't really flex much. Just a little. You don't want a lot of flex out of it, because I want a fairly flat bevel, or edge, I should say. But it also, the convex helps give a really nice edge. So I start with a really wore out Blaze 120 grit belt, and then I switch up to a Cling Sport 800 grit, and then I go over to these Gators. I think they're like, I don't know, 8,000 grit or something. Knock the burr off and polish the edge. Works really well. If any of you got my knives, you probably know if it came directly from me. I strive for really sharp knives, so I'll try to do a video on how I sharpen just to show you guys. So, alright, well, I'll get back to you. Okay, so we got the locks all cut on everything. So right now what I'm doing is being totally OCD, and what I do is, like, I've got this one finished. Lockup's good, early, everything's squared away. All I really got left on these ones is to drill and tap the holes to lock down the inserts, or the inlay. But what I'm going to do is, for every knife, I check fit, make sure everything's good to go, and then I take it apart one last time and I deburr all the edges. I tumble all these knives anyway, which kind of deburrs. It just doesn't deburr enough to my liking. I really dislike sharp jimping. I gotta grind in a spot in here to make it easier to lock and unlock. Little things like that. So I'll walk you through what I do, just so you can see why it takes so freaking long to do the things that I'm doing. So I love these handy dandy Dremel or DeWalt drills, because I can set the clutch and it'll keep it from breaking these screws off, but it makes it faster screwing and unscrewing. I don't worry about the pivot so much, so I just use the impact. I want to get a couple smaller drills for this. That'll make things faster in the long run, because we're all about working on efficiency so we can quit having a year backlog, 2-year backlog on things, seeing as how we got 1,000 guys that want knives right now. So looking at this, I've already chamfered the edge out here when I was belt sanding the outside profile, but it misses the corners and they're kind of sharp, so I just Dremel them. So my Dremel's on its last legs. I got a 4-dorm coming in, but it'll do for now. So you probably won't even really be able to see that, but I just chamfer the edges there. I like to hold the Dremel real close to my body. Hopefully, I don't know if you can see this. Kind of hold it in between my chest and my stomach, and then lock my elbows in. Let me see if I can back you up and show you. Hopefully you can see this. I try to lock the Dremel in, lock my elbows in, and then lock my other hand in here. Gives you a lot of stability for working on things. If you're out here, you got to move all your arms and everything's moving around. But if you lock it in, it's like putting it on a vise almost. So, little tip. Hopefully it'll help you. Okay, so now that we got that taken care of, that can go in there. Throw all my bits and pieces in there. Take the HRD out. I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you guys have already seen all this, but this is the HRD. If I can get it to focus. Just that little ball bearing right at the tip of my thumbnail there. Just rolls. Works really well. Just threads in. So, got that all out of there. Oil blade, because we're in Texas and everything rusts the second you leave it exposed. And I've been playing with these, so it's got the oils for my fingers all over it, and they'll rust in a heartbeat. So I just hose them down, coat them, and when I go to work on it, I just wipe them off when I'm done. And then before I send them out to you guys, I use some Bow Shield, whatever you call it. It's like a wax. Works pretty good at keeping the rust down. Let's go over to the horizontal and I'll show you how I do this. Hopefully, can find a good area to show you guys what I do, since I pretty much just sit on the floor. Let me change the batteries out just a sec. Alright guys, so just plugging away. Just been running some lock faces for the next batch, since I'm still finishing out all of the other A15s and A8s. Wow, can't get that to focus. Let me get in there a little better. There we go. Now you can see those. Barely. Let's go over to the bench, I'll show them to you. Doing a batch of 60 Quabacks, knocking out my whole order book, so that will help. So just got to deburr these, knock this foil off. There we go. So lock inserts, this is 4V, or not 4V, yeah 4V, not 3V, 4V, there we go. One of the few makers I believe that have it, so should be pretty cool. I just finished up that batch on the mill, so there'll be 90 of these. Gives me a few extras. I can run 30 on each plate, so that worked out. Never mind the Skittles. Mind your business. I like the diabetes. Oh, one thing. Maybe you guys can help me with this. You see this sticker here? It says Channel 19. I just put a one of those small driveway alarm little chimers in front of the shop door, so I would know when the UPS man shows up. And I was just messing with it, and it doesn't quite reach the house where I need it, so I just opened it up and put a piece of wire on the antenna so I can extend it to the roof, because it's a UHF band, so it's line of sight. So I hacked it open and put a wire on there, basically an extended antenna, and then did the same thing for the one in the house. I ran into the house to have my little brother come out and hit the chimer so I could see if it was actually working, and in that 2-minute period, someone stopped over, walked up to my shop, and put this sticker on the alarm side on my door, and then took off. I thought that was rather odd, making me awfully paranoid for some reason. Why would someone put a Channel 19 sticker on there? The only thing I can think of is that somebody was tracking the signal because it was interfering on Channel 19. I don't know. I gotta go try to dig up my UHF radio and see if that thing's chiming on 19. But I thought that was rather odd. There is a lot of oil around here, so I'm wondering if some of the truckers were having some issues or something. They just wanted to mark it so they knew. But that's freaking trespassing. Stay the heck off my property. I don't know. So, yeah. Comment. Let me know what you think of that. I thought it was odd. I try not to be too paranoid, but that is kind of weird. And I wouldn't even have noticed if I hadn't been messing with it right then just to make it work better. So, well, I'm off to finish knives. I showed you all my toolbox on Instagram. I just got a new one, finally. Really good deal. U.S. General. This is from Harbor Freight, of all places. It's on ball bearing slides. This thing's freaking sweet. And I got the members track sign up, and I got 20% off the sale price. So I only paid like 280 bucks for this. It's 13 drawers. It's 44 inches wide and about 3 feet tall or so. And I've got it all set up with all my hardware. So it's organization. I love it. So I'm still finishing A15s and A8s. I'm almost finished up with the A15s. Sorry guys, I am so freaking slow and I have no idea why I'm being so slow. So my apologies yet again. Another edition of slow Hoback. But you guys will be much impressed. The guys that have already got the ones that I've finished up have been really impressed, and they've emailed me and tell me they love them, so that makes me super happy. I'm glad I'm doing a good job. So quality, unfortunately, I'm doing a bunch of new things that are causing me to slow down a little, but it'll be worth it in the end because you're getting an absolutely amazing tool. Is the best that I can possibly make it. So that's my whole goal, is to make the best tool in the world. So yeah, look forward to finishing these up. Hopefully I can finish them soon. I'm sorry again, guys. I feel terrible that it's taken so long, especially with the guys that paid and I thought they were going to be done a week ago and they're not. So if you guys have some problems, just email me. I'm going to finish these up and get cracking. Alright guys. New fresh battery in here. So this is my crappy horizontal like I showed you. I'll just give you a rundown of what I do. Just chamfering the edges and things like that. You probably won't be able to hear me since this thing is ridiculously loud. Any tool rest, so I freehand everything, so you probably won't see that a lot, but it builds a lot of good muscle control. And again with this, I'm always tucking my elbows or resting my elbows on something so that there's no arm movement. I'm just moving my wrist basically and my knees a little. That really helps you develop good control. Okay, so they're nice and hot at the moment, but you can see I chamfer the edges over here where your thumb goes in, all the edges where it's going to rub, especially on the flipper spot, so you're not cutting yourself on the sharp edge. So it works pretty good. So, on to the next one. Got about 10 more. Okay, so I'll give you a rundown on my sharpening setup. Like I said earlier in this video, the last video, It's just a 1x30 belt sander. Got it from Harbor Freight probably 10 years ago. It was like 30 bucks. I turned it on its back so the belt goes away from me. And then I put a plating on here. I really don't need this little tool rest, but I've got a piece of CPM 154 that's like full hardness on here. Kind of allows a little more tension on the belt. So if you look here, it takes a fair amount of pressure to get that to move. That's what I'm looking for when I sharpen. I want the bevels to be almost, or the edge to be almost flat, but I concave it or convex it just a little tiny bit. Makes it a little easier to sharpen. Takes a real keen edge too, and it makes it a little bit stronger. So the belt that I've got on here is a 1x30 Blaze 120 grit. And what I'll do is I'll just take a piece of steel, whatever I've got laying around in the scrap, and put a fresh belt on, and I'll just run it on here really hard to knock the grit down a bit. And then this belt will rough in the profiles probably on 30 or 40 knives before I need to replace it. So it lasts a long time, so it's not too big a deal. And then I switched from this belt to a, what is this, a Klingspor. Turn that around. Klingspor CS321. It's like an 800 grit. There we go. Yeah, X weight. It's a fairly stiff belt. It works pretty well. And that's what I take the 120 grit scratches out with. And then once I've got all the scratches out, I switch over to a, what is this? It's like a gator type belt. I don't know, Puan? I have no idea what that is. Maybe that's upside down. Maybe that's why I can't pronounce it. No idea. Engineered abrasive. I think it's a Norax, but I can't tell what that says. I think it might say Norax. It's a U254X5. I have no idea what some of those numbers are, but it's like, I want to say it's a couple thousand grit. I have no real clue, but it polishes really well. So these belts, they don't last quite as long as the 120s do. I can get 7 or 8 out of this belt and 7 or 8 out of this belt, and then I throw them out and put a new one on there. Just takes too long to polish the edge. So I've got a big stack of 10 knives here to sharpen real quick. I've already done half of them, but I'll show you how I rough them in real quick, and then I'll switch belts and we'll just go through the whole thing. Basic premise is when I'm putting the initial bevel on here, and let me grab one. You can see there's no edge on there. If I can get it to focus. There we go. So, no edge. And I will pop the edge on there real quick. Set up the tripod. Hopefully I can do this in a way that you can actually see it. Let me come from over... Yeah. That might help. So, this isn't the greatest belt sander. I always got to loosen it up to get the motor to start and spin it by hand because it's a really underpowered motor and it's noisy, but it works. It's been working for 10 years, so I haven't felt the need to change it yet. I always try to wipe most of the oil off the blades. I gotta oil everything really bad just because it rusts around here, but we'll just give it a go. I've done this so many times I don't really pay much attention to it, but I hold the blade at about 15 degrees off the belt. Gives you a 30-degree inclusive, roughly. Okay. You turn this off. Get it to focus. Come on. Focus. Please. Why don't you like me? There we go. Okay, so you can see that profile is pretty rough. I take it just a little over halfway, and then when I go do this side, I go a little over halfway, meet in the middle, and leaves a nice burr. So we'll go do the other side. And you saw how I do my tips. Now, if this was a non-transition right into a tip, I would just curve it like that instead of coming in and then rocking it. But you kind of get the idea. So let's go. I didn't go quite far enough over, so I'm going to do the other side and bring it back over a little more. That way I get a good burr. Okay, let me wipe the grit off real gently so I don't scratch it. Okay, so now if you look real close to the edge there, you can see that burr. That's what you're looking for. So I always try to bring the burr onto the logo side. I don't know, it's just habit. And then I switch belts because this belt is just for roughing in. So get it to focus, and you can see the burr all the way across the edge there. If you look at this side, there's no burr. You don't really have to worry too much. I'm using about heat in your blade. I'm using pretty light pressure when I'm doing this. It's not generating a lot of heat. I mean, I just did all that and I could put it on my skin and it's just barely warm. So that's something you got to pay attention to. You don't want to overheat it. If you're just pushing really hard, you're going to generate a lot of heat. Let the belt do the work on this. It's not like grinding bevels. But once you get the hang of it, it's pretty straightforward and you can go pretty quick and you get a real consistent edge as long as you do it right. So let's swap belts. Well, actually, let me do these other 5 and I'll turn you back on and then we'll swap belts. Okay, so just yank the wheel off, or the belt off, excuse me, and I'm going to swap the 800 grit on there real quick and we'll start going and polishing the edge up. Okay, so you can see the edge is pretty rough. So let's polish it up. We're not going to take the burr off. Now we've moved the burr and polished all those 120 grit scratches out. Now I'll get done with all those guys and swap the belts, and I'll show you that side of it. Okay, so now on to the knocking the burr off. Got those 10 done. It's not too bad. All in all, it takes, for one knife, maybe 5 minutes. So, not terrible. I want to build a fixture that'll allow me to do it super consistent. Just haven't had time. So here we go. See if I can get it to zoom. Let's polish it up. Knock the burr off. Okay, got the burr all knocked off, and you can see that it's nice and polished. It's kind of like a strop in a way, the way it goes. Let me grab a piece of paper and I'll show you how good it cuts. So, got a piece of paper. Voila! So, does pretty good. I always shoot for nice and sharp, and that's what I shoot for, just slicing paper. I mean, you can honestly, you could take it further. It's just, end user wise, that's a good user finish. Cuts paper clean, shaves hair, all that fun stuff. So, yeah. Does what it's supposed to do. Any sharper than that, you know, it's up to you guys, because, I mean, there's only so much I can do. So I try to make them really nice and usable sharp, and then after that, if you want something way sharper, some scary sharp, that's up to you, but I think I do a decent job. I've been told I have, so we'll keep it at that. So yeah, that's it for sharpening. What I'm going to do is finish up these videos, and I think I'll probably put this one separate from the other one, seeing as how it's probably already 20 minutes long. But alright guys, well, till next time, let me know if you have any questions. Probably have to email me, because the comments on YouTube, I don't get a chance to get on there very often, so I've only got so much time in the day. Alright guys, God bless.